Welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. This program is for educational purposes only. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual sharing their testimony. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach. Welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. This program is for educational purposes only. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual sharing their testimony. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. Let's go ahead and open up that waiting room, let people in, as yes, this is a live show. And with being live, we got to make sure that we don't have any distractions. So thank you so much for joining us. If you are watching one of the live streams and you'd like to join us live, you may do so by going to zoom.dailywithdoc.com. Again, that's Zoom, ZOOM.DAILYWITHDOC.com. As we are here Monday through Friday from 12 to 1 p.m. Pacific time, except for holidays. So if you're in Mountain Time, that is 1 to 2, Central Time, 2 to 3, Eastern Time, 3 to 4. And if you're in South Africa, depending on the time of year, it is 10 to 11 p.m. So we are super excited to be able to reach around the world, as this is the last day of 2024, but it is the first day of any and every day where you can continue to absorb knowledge that you can use and put into action in your own life to help benefit yourself, your family, and together we can benefit the world. So today we are honored to be able to have with us Dr. Judy Reynolds, and she's going to be taking a deep dive into those sweeteners, the natural stuff, the not so natural stuff. And I'm super excited to be able to share this information with you. So if somebody invited you to this program, make sure that you get back with them, tell them that you watched, and let them know what you liked best about the program. They are going to be your point of contact. So if you have any information, you want to get started on any of the products that are recommended, or you want to do a consultation and say, hey, this is where I'm at. This is where I want to be. What do I need to get there when it comes to your health journey? Because chances are the person that shared this program with you is a health advocate, a health coach, and an independent distributor of longevity. So, folks, without further ado, Dr. Judy Reynolds, she is absolutely amazing. We are honored to have her with us, as she is the doc of the day. So she's a graduate assistant. She is a graduate assistant teacher and a university professor who has taught classes at community college education levels, gifted preschool, high school, university, and graduate students. She has developed and taught over 20 equine classes, and she's also taught horse owners, veterinarians, and salespeople about nutrition and feeding. So, folks, as we know from Dr. Wallach, there is a direct correlation between the animal world and the human world. And nice thing about it with animals, we can kind of control what they eat so that they can get better results. We just need to practice that for ourselves. But her formal education includes an associate's with a focus on anatomy and physiology. She has a Bachelor of Science in Biology and Education. She has a master's in animal science and a PhD in nutrition from Texas A&M University. Her research includes mineral metabolism and physiology of the genetic disorders. Of course, these are in horses, but she has over 250 presentations at college, universities, trade shows, and horse fairs. She's also written over 175 equine-related articles, and we are honored to have Dr. Judy here with us to continue in sharing her knowledge of nutrition with the human world and the owners of those animals. So, Dr. Judy, thank you so much for being here with us, as I know a lot of people have questions in regards to sugars and sweeteners and, you know, what's good, what's bad, there's so many different things that are coming out about things that have even been FDA approved for human consumption that are causing cancer, that are being recalled, that are not allowed in other countries for use because of their toxicity. So, Dr. Judy, thank you for being here with us and for shedding some light on this whole sweetener saga.
Thanks, Becca. It's great to be here. It's wonderful to be on the last show, and I'm looking forward to watching some fun things as we celebrate the end of 2024, and especially this topic. I'm going to look at sugars and sweeteners from probably mainly the point of view of parents and grandparents, and how are these affecting our children. So I'm going to kind of put a focus on that. I found an amazing book that it's called Sugar Proof, and it actually does exactly that, because when we are in our own home and we're making the decisions and buying the food that they can eat at home, then we're going to send them out into the world with their friends and their schools and whatever sports and things that they do. And so this book, actually, a shout out to my sister who recommended it to me, and she was looking at that same topic for her own children. And so I'm going to go into that. But first of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about what is sugar, very little, and what sugar molecules are like. And then I'll go into, I found a few references that I want to just make a few quotes about. And then I will touch on natural and artificial sweeteners. What is the best for our sweet tooths? What is the one best thing right now that we can do? And I think all of us as a community are realizing that we really have to limit sugar because it's taken over food. I mean, it's basically, refined sugar is totally a natural thing for our bodies. There was none available before the 1800s. It really wasn't readily available. So let's jump into it here. I've got some slides, and I just need to move one thing to get to them. And there we go. Okay. So again, sugars and sweeteners, and it's just such a huge issue that we could spend many hours on it. I'm going to try to simplify, just do a basic summary and concepts at this point in an hour. So here we go. Okay, the glucose molecule is, we say that it's a carbohydrate, and that means it has carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in the formula of C6H12O6. Carbohydrates are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen in a 1-to-1 ratio. Because fats also have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, but most of the oxygen has been taken out. Fat is a storage molecule, whereas glucose is a molecule that's burned right away. That's the main function of glucose, is to be burned right away to produce energy for our bodies, energy for everything we do, move, breathe, everything to do with reproduction and all those things. Okay, so carbohydrates, the main carbohydrate, table sugar, this is what we're talking about, refined sugar, it's called sucrose. And in this example, sucrose gets, all the other things get taken, when you start with molasses, you remove everything but the sucrose. And then sucrose is 2 sugar molecules, glucose with a G and fructose with an F. Together, that's called sucrose or table sugar. So we use an amylase enzyme. Remember, ACE is always an enzyme, and you may have heard of salivary amylase is found in saliva, in your mouth. And then you have pancreatic amylase and gastric amylase. These are all the enzymes that are going to break that bond between those 2 sugars. Okay, so when that happens, the 2 sugars are different. And this is one of the important things that we need to realize, is that glucose is the one that goes in. We eat a meal, and about an hour and a half after that, we have a rise in blood sugar, because the glucose goes into our blood, which then insulin has to come in, and insulin really tells the sugar to go into our cells and get out of our blood. So that's your typical blood glucose changes that you look at when you're worried about having diabetes or things like that. We're looking at what's happening with that blood sugar. So that's what happens to the glucose molecule. And here I have it, glucose, increased blood sugar, and then it's going to go through a pathway to provide energy for our body. But the fructose molecule is different. It is sent directly to the liver. It doesn't raise blood sugar. It goes to the liver and it's metabolized in the liver. And then if there's too much of it, if we or our children eat too much fructose in the liver stores that excess as fat. And we don't want our liver to be storing fat. Our liver is our body's main detoxifier. So that fat gets in the way. And you've probably heard of fatty liver in alcoholics. Well, what alcohol is just sugar. So it gets metabolized, and that's what it does to the liver, is it adds fat there. That's a horrible issue with alcoholics. They end up with, you probably heard of liver cirrhosis, things like that. So that's basically the issue there. But with fructose, it always goes to the liver. So if you eat too much fructose all at once, you have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And that's very common with as much sugar as people are consuming lately. So that's the issue here, is that we have different types of sugars. They're metabolized differently. And so we have to look at, when we're eating something, is it going to affect us by raising blood sugar like sucrose, or is it going to hurt us by damaging the liver like fructose? And how would you balance? And the issue with high fructose corn syrup has become a big thing. And your typical sucrose molecule is one glucose, one fructose, so they're 50-50. There's half of each. With the actual, what they call high fructose corn syrup out in industry that you will see in all kinds of foods and drinks, all they did is they added fructose, or they used more of the fructose, and it's basically 45% glucose and 55% fructose. And when they did that, they thought that was good because they were lowering the blood sugar issue, which it did. But it also leads to that too much fructose, liver issues that you're going to be seeing. Okay, so I'm going to do just a quick thing to orient us with other carbohydrates. So when we think of starch, like in a soda cracker, what it is, it's a chain of glucose molecules. Now, remember, we think in our minds, starch is not sweet. And a great experiment that we did when I was teaching high school biology is that you would have the students take a soda cracker and chew it, and just keep chewing it. Don't swallow. Chew it for 30 seconds to a minute, and you would start to taste sweetness, because these bonds are broken by the amylase enzyme, and that starch becomes sugar. It's just releases sugar molecules. So this is something that unless you've learned this, you're not going to intuitively think that starch is made up of sugar molecules, but it is a fascinating thing about nutrition. Okay, so what happens then? Break down the glucose, and what actually happens, you're going to get your energy, and that's fine. But if you have too much starch, some of that glucose will go to the back of your digestive system, to your colon, in which case the bacteria there will ferment it, and you will get lactic acid. So you've heard of lactic acid in your muscles. If you work too hard, you're going to get lactic acid. But this happens from fermented sugar only when you eat too much, because your digestive system can, in the foregut with all those amylases, they can deal with most of that. Okay. And what does this lead to? Gas and bloating in humans, and colic founder in horses. My slides, most of them have started out in horse presentations, and then I love to do comparisons. So I will pull in human with horse and horse with human, and just kind of look at it that way. So that's the story with starch. Now, another carbohydrate that you've probably heard of is cellulose. And what this is fiber, like in celery and things like that. And it's also glucose molecules. Again, not intuitive. You wouldn't think that that's true, but there's a different kind of bond. It's not that amylase, that amylose can break. It's called a beta bond, and we can't digest it. So again, that cellulose has to go to the bacteria in your colon, and the bacteria there will break it down, and it's called fermentation. So they will break it down, and they break it down into 3 little things we call volatile fatty acids. They have 2 carbons, 3 carbons, or 4 carbons, and they're called acetic acid, propionic acid, and butyric acid. So that's the end result of the fiber digestion. And so this is what the cattle do when they're ruminating. They'll take their fiber in for a while, and then they'll go lay down, and they have 4 chambers in their stomach. So they'll basically throw up that fiber. They'll chew on it for a while, mix juices with it, then put it into a stomach section that's similar to our stomach. And then basically the bacteria have done their job at the beginning of the digestive tract, and these are the results that you're going to get. And you may have heard of things like acetic acid. Propionic acid is often used on foods and feeds as a preservative, and it does do that. And then butyric acid comes in some other things too, but not an issue right now. Okay, one more thing to realize is that you can have strings of other sugars, not just glucose and fructose. So this is xylose. It is a 5-carbon sugar. And okay, it's a 5-carbon shape. The other extra carbon is up at the top. So it's a 5-carbon ring, but it's still a 6-carbon sugar. They're all 6-carbon sugars. Okay, and again, you've got to have that bacterial enzyme to break it down. And if we look at animal nutrition, we find about 50% of the cellulose and hemicellulose in their diets is digested. The rest of it is wasted. It's lost. And the last type of carbohydrate that you may or may not have heard of is called lignin. And the bond, there is no bond breaker by human enzymes, horse enzymes, or bacterial enzymes. So lignin is that fiber that goes all the way through. It always goes all the way through. We can't digest it. Now, there are 2 things that break it down. Number 1 is termites, and it's not the termites themselves, it's the bacteria within the termites that can break lignin down. So they're out there coming up from the ground, chewing up your wood, if there happen to be, and your house, if they happen to be around. And then the other thing is fire, because basically wood, we're talking about wood, the the strong structural carbohydrate that's in trees and plants and things like that. So everything goes through, it ends up in the feces of people, manure of the animals. Okay, so to sugar. What's the big issue with sugar? And we're talking processed sugar, table sugar. Okay, and this is the reference I was talking about. I'll say a little more about that in a minute. 160 pounds of processed sugar is the average per day. This was in 2015. In this particular reference, I would not be surprised at all if it's higher right now. And like I said, it was not available. Processed sugar from sugarcane. I don't know if sugar beets came in earlier or later, but probably sugarcane was the main first one. So the early 1800s, we started doing it, but it wasn't really available, so people weren't eating it. So in that amount of time, we went from maybe a pound or 2 a year to 160 pounds of processed sugar. Could that be a problem? Anytime you look at a situation like that, sure, it could. And it is, definitely. Again, this reference, they said 40 to 50% of American adults will develop diabetes, and that was in 2015. Other references say other similar things, but if we keep going the direction we're going, first of all, we won't be able to afford all the healthcare of all the people. There won't be enough people healthy to take care of the ones that aren't. So that's a frightening situation going forward. Okay, and oh, sorry, this is a different reference on this one. This is from Sugar Crush. And then there's another one called the inflammation syndrome for this thing. When I go to the next page, it'll be sugar proof. Okay. So he says in the inflammation syndrome, refined sugar is a genetically unfamiliar ingredient. So he is an anthropologist. He's a person who studies what all the different animals have eaten and eat in nature. And he's going, is this a change in our genes? It really can't be, because genes don't change that quickly. You can't, we don't have a way to deal with something when it becomes such a large part of our diet, and it wasn't naturally something that we had. Okay. Okay, so what does this excess blood sugar do? Well, we've known the problems with blood quickly, because whenever people draw blood, they would notice these increases in sugar. We've had a great author, Dr. Perlmutter, who did a series of books about the effects on the brain, and called Grain Brain, and then a bunch of Brain Maker, which talks about the microbiome, a bunch of those. We've known about the effects of hormones, how people act. And one of the main things that sugar does is it depletes our B vitamins. So the more sugar we eat, the more B vitamins we need. Remember, if you've seen some of my previous lectures, I show you that we need B vitamins to break everything down into energy. And the more sugar we have to break down, the more B vitamins we need. And they, along with vitamin C, have to be taken in our diet every day. They're essential, they're water soluble, and we have to have them every day. So that's why we get hormonal problems, we get mood problems, mental health problems, all kinds of things like that. And sugar is a favorite of alcoholics. There's a tie-in with B vitamins, alcoholism, and sugar. That's, we've understood for quite some time also. The other thing is gaining weight, because if we're eating too much sugar, there are calories involved in sugar. So body weight goes up. Then what has happened to us? We've gone to using medications to manage the symptoms of that sugar rise in our blood. Again, we're managing symptoms, but we're not fixing the problem. So we've realized that our health requires less calories. So we don't gain weight. It also requires less sugar. And the interesting thing about it, there's no requirement for sugar. I mean, some people say that, our brain needs sugar and things like that. True. But there is a way to make more sugar, because for one thing, we're fasting all night. We may fast for days. We may be sick. We can't eat. Things like that happen, and we're not getting sugar all the time. So our body makes it. It's a process called gluconeogenesis. So it's called making new sugar, and it happens in our liver. So we do not actually have a requirement for refined table sugar at all. Makes sense, because there was no such thing not that long ago. Okay, and here I am at the Sugar Proof book, and he lists 81 common names for sugar. And I'm just going to read a few of these because I think it's interesting for people. When we want to know how much sugar we're eating, but we have to look at the label. And let's say one kind of sugar is used in a specific food, let's say a candy bar or something. If they put one kind of sugar on the label, it's going to be the first ingredient. It's going to be the most percent of that candy bar. But we're going to know that it's a lot of sugar and it's more than anything else in there. But what ends up happening is they'll put 5 or 6 or 8 different sugars with all these different names. And they might even not be at the beginning. There might be something else first or second. And in human diets, in human labeling, we have to put the highest percentage of the ingredient that's in the diet first. It's law. In horses, it's not, but they usually do if they're credible, because people will figure it out if they don't. But and I believe pet foods also, you have to put you have to put the most included ingredient first and then go down second, third, like that. So what happens is when we're looking at foods, we're going to see all these different sugars, but we're not going to realize how much sugar is in it. So let me just read a few. Things like they might say apple juice concentrate, they might say barley malt, beet sugar, blackstrap molasses, brown rice sugar. This is a good one, buttered sugar. And we all know cane sugar and all those, but caramel, that all that is sugar that's heated and denatured until it becomes brown. And we don't want to do that because we don't want that browning to be affecting the way our body works. It leads to aging. So that's a bad thing. And then you have confectioner's sugar and corn sweetener and corn syrup and all the different things, glucose, fructose, fruit juice. There's a lot of sugar in fruit. But as you'll see in a minute, at least it's a whole food and it is meant to be eaten together with the fiber and all the wonderful nutrients that are in it. So there are a bunch of them, and I'm gonna recommend this book for people who really want to look at this for their children, or people really interested in nutrition, kind of nerdy like I am, things like that. Turbinado sugar, wheat sugar, mannose. I mean, just okay, 81 of them. Okay, so just bring that to your attention, that when you look on labels, lots of different possibilities. Okay. So then we get to, okay, we know that we eat too much sugar, and we know that it causes problems with blood sugar and our whole body. So what can we do? Well, human beings like to be creative. So they decided, well, let's go into the lab. Let's be chemists. And let's try to figure out some way that we can get that sweetener. Because, by the way, sugar has been shown in studies with rats and other laboratory animals to be more addicting than cocaine and most of the major drugs. If they gave rats a choice, they would take the sugar over not only their food, but they would also take it over most of the drugs that are so harmful. So sugar really is addicting. So, okay, we know that we really want that sweetness, and just a caveat, reduce the sweetness, reduce the sugar. That's what we need to do. Reduce the sugar. Don't, cave into the addiction like cigarettes or whatever. But what are we going to try to do? We want to keep the sweetness, but we don't want the calories. We don't want those problems. So man has come up with 3 different things. Really, the third one isn't man, but we'll get into that in a minute. We've come up with a category called artificial sweeteners. And that's where people, when I say man, it's generic. It's not gender discriminatory. So it's the generic man. Chemicals are put together, and they've found some compounds that they can put in foods and trick us into thinking that we're getting something sweet. But they're saying, well, you can enjoy that sweetness and that feeling that you like, but you're not going to have all the bad effects of the sugar. Not true. So I guess I might as well go into that right here. The main thing that has been discovered about these artificial sweeteners is what happens is our tongues have a way to send little tiny bits of whatever sweeteners come into our mouth straight into our blood. And what that does is it starts our hormones anticipating that sugary meal. So if it's table sugar and it comes in, and we think, our body says, okay, sugar's coming, it gets everything ready, including getting insulin ready to go in. That's normal. That's what would happen. But if we do an artificial sweetener like these, that sugar is on your tongue and it's warning your system, getting the insulin and everything ready, but then that sugar doesn't come because you've eaten something that your body cannot break down. And so that sugar, basically, you are going to crave it because you are already releasing insulin. You're already getting your body ready to digest it, and it doesn't come. So what they've found is people, after eating the artificial sweeteners, literally go out and seek sugar foods to fix what their body has already put in process. And by studying that, people gain weight. And this is with drinks, specific, for sure, things like sweetened drinks, whether it's the sugar or the artificial sweetener, both of them, you gain weight and they cause all kinds of other problems. Those little molecules that go on your tongue, they also alert your brain and other places in your body that, and they can attach to those sweetness receptors and cause problems all over. Again, the brain, other parts of the body. So really, a lot of things are happening with these that we don't particularly want. Okay, and that's kind of the theme. And I got a couple of specific things towards the end. Right now, I'm gonna go through this author and kind of explain how he's doing it. And his main purpose is for children. We don't know enough about these things. We don't know enough. He doesn't recommend them. I don't recommend them. But because again, it should be do no harm. It should be, let's figure out what we're doing first. Okay. So the second thing is sugar alcohols, and that is modified sugar molecules so that they get absorbed or modified and they go in your body, they don't get absorbed, and they always end in OL. But again, they're human made. And then the natural sweeteners, things like stevia that come from the leaf of a plant and things like that, they can, they use them in baking and different things like that. Again, they're not absorbed, and there are consequences of these. So I'm almost finished with this part. My pointer likes to do fun things. It's just, if it hasn't been working for a while, it just goes, no. I have to have the pointer to get my slide to go forward here. Well, maybe. What is it doing? All right, there it is. Okay. So I am going to just name these. It would take hours to go through in detail each particular one. Ace K was a new one for me. I had not heard that much about it. It's extremely sweet, thousands of times sweeter than sugar. It has a bitter taste, so you have to use it with other sweeteners. But it's thousands of times sweeter. So you can imagine this could cause issues with the receptors. And then you have aspartame, which we all have heard of. Phenylalanine is a breakdown product of that. It's an amino acid. And people who have phenylketonuria, you'll see that label on sweeteners that have aspartame, because they test for babies for that disorder at birth, because the phenylalanine will go to the brain and sit there, and it can't be metabolized, and these babies would die very young. So it's a very serious thing for anyone who has that particular genetic issue. And then there's another one called advantame, which is 40,000 times sweeter than aspartame, a relatively new one. Hadn't heard of that one before either. Then the one we were used to as NutraSweet, Sweet and Low, Splenda, and Cyclamate. And these are brand names. And again, not going to go into huge amounts of detail. Most of these have been on the market for quite some time. And therefore, there are data about what the issues are with each individual one. Again, I'm looking at, let's not, instead of trying to trick ourselves to keep getting that sweetness that we crave, let's do less of the sugar and the sweeteners. That's basically where I'm coming from here. Okay, then there are the sugar alcohols, and you've seen a lot of these on labels too. Remember, they're modified sugar molecules. They're sweet. They still taste sweet, but they're not absorbed. Some of the main things people complain about are bloating, GI distress, and they affect our microbiome, which we talked about in one of the previous ones. Common names: xylitol, sorbitol, lactitol, mannitol, erythritol. And these have been around for quite some time. Again, so there are data about specific things that they do and effects and things like that. And then we have the natural sweeteners. And these are the things that they don't get absorbed. They are in nature, they're found in plants, but they have been shown to cause GI distress, and they do affect the microbiome. Stevia comes from the leaf. And then there's Truvia, which is a combination of stevia, erythritol, and flavor enhancers. There's one called monk fruit. There's another one called Yacon. I'm not sure the pronunciation, syrup. And you may have heard of fructo saccharides, or FOS, which is one of the things that we talk about as a prebiotic to feed our microbiome, our good bacteria in our microbiome. But it's a string of fructose molecules. It's a fructo-oligosaccharide, fructose. And it tends to be partially digested. So if that happens, you are getting fructose molecules. And then that goes through that process of going to the liver to be absorbed and things like that. Okay,
Dr.
the
Judy,
last two. Yeah.
we have a couple questions in regards to your last slides. One of them is monk fruit bad?
Okay, Becca, let me finish this time, okay? Because I'm almost done. And then I'll go back. And if we have a question about a specific thing, I will pull up the definition from the book, okay? Because I didn't write it all in here, okay? All right, so last two, and these are new, and we had a question about allulose last time in my last lecture. Okay, allulose and tagalose. What they are is they're extremely rare. Okay, so there's a little bit of them in things like fruits. Mostly the allulose is mostly in fruits, but the tagalose is in milk and in some fruits. So what they've done is take out, let's say there's one part out of 1,000 or more parts. They can take all those little parts and make just pure allulose. Okay, and that's what is being looked at. These are both very new, and so there isn't much known about how they are going to affect people. Okay, so this is a basic thing. Now, conclusions, and this is from Sugar Proof about your children. We hope that one day more will be known about the long-term effects of the many different kinds of low carbohydrate or low calorie sweeteners on children. At that point, it would be possible to give recommendations that are specific to each product. Until then, a good way to sugar-proof your children is to avoid all of them. Okay, let me tie it all in, and then we can go to questions. Okay, as a feed formulator and as a mineral specialist, I know that minerals taste horrible. And a lot of other things that we need taste horrible. And no one would buy, for instance, some vitamin mineral type products. Literally, no one would ever buy them if they weren't formulated to have enough taste to make them palatable. And that's a big deal. It's a huge deal in animals. You can't, I mean, you might be able to coax your children to take something. They used to have kids take cod liver oil and things like that that just tasted horrible, but they knew they needed the ingredients, so they did it. When it comes to animals, you're not going to force animals to eat anything. So that is a big issue. And as part of that, what I'm going to say is I trust the formulators at Youngevity because the things that we're doing are essential, literally essential. And there may be, if you're taking a capsule or a tablet and it contains your essential minerals and things like that, there may be some of these low calorie sweeteners or different sweeteners or fruit sweetener, things like that could be in certain products. The choice there is do that or don't get your essential nutrients, which we all know is not a good thing. So we are all in a position of do the best, don't do harm, do less harm and things like that. So that's the main thing that I want to get across to all of us is that the number one thing we should be doing, in my opinion, is lowering the amount of sugar, not eating the things that have all these sugars and all these things as much as possible. So as I see a need for them for something to make it palatable in our vitamin mineral supplements and things like that, I see no need whatsoever to put that kind of thing in a drink. Exception I'm not talking about our where we're putting a whole meal together, you know, protein, vitamins, mineral, blah, 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 into that. And then I would use the fruit type things for that. But my point here is you cannot drink cans and cans and cans of either sweetened or artificially sweetened beverages and have health. Doesn't make any sense. And okay, no, I'm not going to do those. Okay. So, questions.
Okay, so we have questions in regards to monk fruit and also allulose. Allulose, and I know you had mentioned that there's not, I don't know why things are not showing. There we go. There's question, and you had mentioned that there's not a whole lot of research to know how it really affects us. Now, monk fruit is coming from a fruit, which you had mentioned. Tell us about allulose, because I know that is something that's fairly new on the market. A lot of people who are trying to do a ketogenic diet or low sugar diet are incorporating that into baking because it does do well with baking, present company included. So I need a little more information on this, Dr. Judy. Do you have anything to share on this?
Okay, I will share what they have here. They did a great job of going through all the different things. I just have to find the page right here. Okay, the thing about allulose is, again, it's found in tiny quantities in fruits and milk. Allulose and, let me read it for you. Allulose and tagalose are rare, meaning they're found in nature in figs, raisins, maple syrup, and brown sugar, for example, but in very small amounts. So what they've done is just concentrate those, right? Makes sense. So that seems like not a bad way to get our sweetener, right? The only difference is similar sweetness to table sugar, but are not metabolized. So you're back to fooling the body. Make sense? They're just excreted in the urine, okay? So allulose looks like a white granular substance and can be made to look and feel just like sucrose with about 70% of the sweetness. This gives it many of the same cooking and baking properties, including crystallization in candy, chocolates, and ice cream. The chemical structure of allulose is very similar to that of fructose. Okay. However, subtle differences in the molecules and the arrangement makes it stable in the body, not broken down. Initial studies, though limited at this time, show that allulose does not affect blood sugar. So it can improve glucose control, but we don't know. So it's popular for food manufacturers. Okay, and now here's their caveat. Although the properties of these emerging sweeteners are certainly appealing to manufacturers, we do not know if they are safe for long-term use. They have not been rigorously studied, and we do not know how much about their health effects, especially on children. Okay, so again, we have been addicted to sugar. I, consider myself to be a sugar addict because I was always wanting the sweets and all this kind of stuff. And I grew up on a good basic diet. I grew up on beef, venison, fresh caught fish, potatoes, vegetables. But then we did have candy around. And we had tooth decay and all this kind of stuff way back when I was young. Okay. And I talked another time, I think something's very important to understand. I'll repeat it, is that research has shown that if the mother does not consume much sugar, the baby will not crave it, even as an adult. So what the mother eats is affecting the baby in gestation, because the baby gets used to the environment of the mother. Okay.
So does that also include high carbohydrates, even if it's not quote unquote sugar? Carbohydrates convert to sugar within the body.
If they do, like starch or like part of the hemicellulose and cellulose fibers, what this is about is strictly sugar that goes in the blood sugar, that then the baby is in that environment. Okay, because the baby does get blood sugar from the mom. They don't have the same blood supply, but the nutrients that go through the placenta to the baby, it is about the sugar. It's not about anything that's not, we don't know anything about these artificial sweeteners and things, or I don't. And I haven't seen much, and I've been doing a lot of detail looking this stuff up, but so we're talking about sugars, actual natural sugars, and how they affect us and how they're addictive and how we really eat too much of them. Okay. And so another thing to keep in mind, I think, for all of us as coaches and as people who want to be interested in nutrition, is that we have to meet our people where they are. And if they didn't understand any of this at all, hell, what are we going to do? Well, reduce, start to reduce. And what I do with baking, if I'm going to have someone over that doesn't want low sugar, low sweet, or we're just going to do cookies or something, I dilute. If I take a mix, I dilute it. I use almond flour. I use all kinds of things to dilute it so that I'm getting less. I'm getting a half or a fourth of my nutrients from that mix that's too high in sugar or whatever, and then maybe 3/4. So when first of all, I'm like a food chemist. I have always messed with recipes. I mean, I used to put cottage cheese in the waffles along with, your bran and all these things that we did many, 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 many years ago. My husband actually accused me of putting broccoli in ice cream, which was not true. But I had hundreds of heads of broccoli where I lived up in Minnesota, and I put it in everything, so I mess with recipes. And some people don't. I mean, if you read books, baking, you must be precise. That is absolutely true to get the result that they are expecting. But if you mess around, you can maybe find a crunchier cookie or that all those recipes got created somewhere. Okay. So, you might not want to do what I've done, but if there are people out there that have recipes, I love the recipes that people are coming up with, especially since, I'm doing the gluten-free thing. So that makes everything 20 times more difficult. You don't want to just go buy gluten-free because it's full of all these other starches and things that just break down to sugar. And yes, you're not getting the issues of gluten destroying the villi in your small intestine, but you still are getting, and also causing leaky gut, but you're still getting those sugars. So it's, it becomes a sugar thing. Okay. So from that,
I'm hearing we just need to reduce and not try to keep a super sweet intake of anything.
Exactly. You're never going to it's like, I shouldn't say alcohol. I don't have a huge amount of personal experience, close family or anything with alcohol issues, but it's not going to get better with more.
Right.
We all need to realize whether we feel like we are always like, are you the one that just hurries up and eats to get to the dessert? Or do you really not care that much about the dessert? Or are you the one that drinks sugary stuff all day long? You have to realize that there are issues with sugar and for your own health. This is me. This is my opinion. That learning, and this is why I didn't want to spend a huge amount of time going through each one of those sweeteners, because it's available. I can help people. I would even go through this book and do a course on it. But why, when my recommendation is going to be, don't do them,
Right.
So
here's a question.
Yeah.
How do we break that sugar addiction as we get older? Do you have any recommendations?
Well, it's all just less. Do less. Yeah.
Do less. Yep. Mindset.
Do less of it. I am a huge fan of the food diary, and everybody hates them. Nobody wants to do them. But if you really want to find out what you're actually eating, do it. Write down not only, which I didn't do a lot with feelings about it, but it's great. What you ate, how much, when it was, and then how did you feel afterwards? Whenever I would feel like I was gaining a few pounds and I thought I better start cutting back, that's exactly what I did. I've done it for decades, is I would start doing a food diary because I won't eat it if I have to write it down. And I won't cheat. It's for myself. Nobody's going to see it. But that was my mindset. If I had to write it down, I was not going to eat it. And back in the day, my treat when I was trying to lose weight was I would have like 3 Hershey Kisses in a day max. I wouldn't eat any other candy, any other cookies, any of that stuff. But I would write down what I was doing, and I would lose weight doing that. I'd lose the 5 pounds, whatever. When I was younger, I was very busy. I was athletic. I was very thin. If you look at my pictures, I got into my blue jeans when I left the hospital after delivering my daughter, and she was small, but I was thin. And then after my son, 5 years later, they started telling us you should gain a little more weight. That was interesting because they didn't talk about how much you should gain back then. But then by the time I had my son, they were like, nah, you probably should gain a little more. We want to make sure that baby's got enough. And I did. And then I never really lost that weight. That just kind of, and then when my son was a year old is when I broke my back and neck issues. And so, those are issues that I personally had. But as far as being older, we don't need as much food. I thought Pharmacist Ben did a great job the other day. I got to listen to part of that, and he said, don't be eating all that stuff and being heavy when you're older. You eat when you're young because you need to build tissue and stuff like that. But we need to tell ourselves that we don't have to eat all the time. The stuff that I've just looked at about the sweeteners and the effects on the tongue of the sweeteners, it also came up that we eat because of memories. We think of something we ate that was good, maybe at about this time of day or whatever, and then we go and get it. We need to stop doing that. And just because you feel hungry, maybe water or those types of things. So there's a psychological part of it. First of all, I think we need to get the information, learn the information, then assess, how does this affect me or doesn't it? And if it does, then we can go on with, okay, what are the things that I can do? And again, if sugar's the issue, you got to have less sugar. People used to say dessert, you'd have dessert once a week or something. Actually having like a pie or a cake or something, yeah, we probably did that every couple weeks, month or something. But again, there was some candy around. So, okay. It sounds like
I was raised that dinner was not complete until dessert was finished.
Right.
It's a programming.
Right.
So we do have to have willpower to break that programming. Absolutely. Right. And Corey comments, a food diary is good. I found the same thing as well. If I have to write it down and see it on paper, I'm not going to eat the bad stuff. So that definitely holds true. Now, we have a couple questions. So, and you may or may not know the answer to this. Gabriel wants to know, is it possible to lose fat at all before hypothyroid issues get resolved? Does that fall within effects of sugar?
Well, hypothyroid is an issue, again, as pharmacist Ben tells us, starting with digestion.
Mm-hmm.
And it affects all those things. So you've got to go back and fix digestion, the good food, bad food list, get rid of the gluten, all those kinds of things. So the question was about fat, getting rid of body fat. Is that what it was?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You can't just go for the body fat. Oh, let me make a comment, because what I just said, it's actually, there are commercials now where they would love to go in and just surgically remove that pesky fat. Hello. Okay.
I'm still.
All the cells, all the nerves, all the blood vessels, the way your metabolism works, just go in and remove it surgically. They're advertising it. I would seriously think about that one. Okay.
Think against it or for it?
No. I mean, think about it. You're going to cut into your body to get rid of extra fat.
Right.
Or should you do it the real way and fix your diet? You know, I mean, it's
just
the issue with all the organs. All the organs have a purpose. They're all there for a reason. And if something goes wrong with them, somebody would love to just remove them. But then what happens? Gallbladder's a great example. You know, then you've got to worry about the enzymes and the bile and all those things and how you can eat for the rest of your life. And the tonsils coming out affects your immune system for the rest of your life. So all these things that they're kind of like these medical things where we try them, like bloodletting killed our first president of the United States, George Washington, because they believed in humors. They believed in the green things and the red things and the other colored things that were in your body. And they thought if you were sick, they should just get rid of a bunch of your blood. Not a good idea, but they did it a lot. So things happen, paradigms shift. I mean, the earth is not the center of the universe. You know, we thought that for how long? I mean, we have to realize that when new things happen, we have to think. We have to use our brains. We have to think and look at consequences and what's the best solution. Again, sugar and all the dangers and issues and problems, the answer is not artificial sweeteners. The answer is less sugar.
Less sugar.
Soapbox.
All right. We have more questions, but we are over the top of the hour or after the top of the hour. Thank you so much. Yeah, time flies.
Thank you.
Time flies. Greatly appreciate where you go more in depth into, like today, what sugar is, what it is, you know, and the different options. So I have already gone to Audible, and yes, that book that you had mentioned is on Audible. So I'll be able to listen and learn while I'm doing my driving throughout the day. But thank you so much, Dr. Judy, for coming on and being here with us and closing out 2024 with something to think about as we're going into 2025. Let's just reduce those things like sugar substitutes, and enjoy food the way they were designed.
And
less
food tastes so
manufacturing.
good. I mean, the foods taste so good. The butter tastes good.
Butter is amazing. Butter makes everything better. But
one quick thing. I got to give you one quick story. I have 3 sisters. And at one point we were all in Minneapolis. My parents lived up there and everything. We're all in Minneapolis. And we decided to go to Williams-Sonoma to get cookbooks and all the gadgets. I have all kinds of kitchen gadgets. And then the movie that was playing was Julie and Julia, about Julia Child. So the four of us went to the movie to see all that. And it just so happened the theater, it was the middle of summer and the theater had no air conditioning. So that's what it was. But I mean, all of us have the interest, most of us women, or a lot of us women, have that interest in the cooking and the cookbooks and all that kind of stuff. And so that's something we did as a family, So there's the book.
And I think that we need to incorporate that more as we're preparing meals, including the families, and just bring more awareness and education to the ingredients that are going in. And when I've got my son helping me in reading labels when we go to the store, and he's like, Mom, there's too many things I cannot pronounce here. I said, well, then I don't think we should put it in our bodies. What do you think? He's like, yeah, you're probably right. So there's a lot of things
Wallach's
that we can make it a
Doc
game.
Wallach's cookbook. We need to mention Doc's cookbook too.
Yeah, so we've got Dr. Wallach's Cooking Without the Bad Food, written by Chef Norman, good friend of mine, who I was able to spend 3 months with as he was preparing foods for Dr. Wallach and myself, and my son. He's a character. My son adored him and the kid type things that they did, but also included the education. So thank you, everybody, for joining us here today on Daily with Doc and Becca. We will not be here tomorrow. We are taking New Year's Day off. So, Dr. Wallach, you can rest tomorrow as well, as it is Wednesday, at least during our time. And we will be back on the 2nd of January with more information and starting the new year off with Dr. Wallach himself. So if I could have our co-hosts come up on the screen with us, I just want to do a shout out to each one of them. Of course, Daily with Doc and being able to offer information from different doctors, whether they're medical doctors, whether they're PhDs, is just an honor. So Dr. Judy, thank you for being one of those doctors that make Daily with Doc, Daily with Doc.
Thank you.
We have on the screen with us today, and this is my co-host team. We have Sherry, who is part of our tech crew. She's helping to set things up to do the streaming to the different platforms. Thank you so much, Sherry. We have Keely, newest member of our little group here, who is helping us with social media and getting the word out even broader and farther and with more creative ways to bring in awareness. Thank you, Kaylee. We have Albert down in South Africa, who is our warden and letting people into the Zoom room as we are doing the live Zoom. Thank you so much, Albert. We have Marilyn, who, if you didn't have the chat open, folks, and you're here live with us, you missed out on all of her amazing notes, where you can take screenshots of the things that are of interest to you and save them for later. Thank you so much, Marilyn, for bringing that talent to our team. We have Ruth Ellen, who is my executive production manager, who's helping to keep us all organized on task and is putting all the information together into what you're seeing out on the different platforms, whether you're on YouTube, Rumble, Brighteon, Rumble, X, LinkedIn. I mean, there's so many different places that we are at, and we're meeting people where they're at. So if you're watching us on one of those platforms, please leave us a comment. Let us know how you heard about us and just say hi, where you're joining us from. And if there's no way to leave us on the broadcast itself, send us a message, and we would love to connect with you as well. And we have, last but not least, we have AJ, who has been so helpful in helping me get out on all the different platforms and meeting people where they're at. as he is our digital marketing director. So thank you so much, AJ, Ruth Ellen, Marilyn, Albert, Haley, Sherry, Dr. Judy, Dr. Wallach. I know you can hear my voice as you are on listening as well. We love and appreciate each and every one of you. This program is being brought to you by dailywithdoc.com. You will find replays of past programs. You'll also find a way to sign up for our email list so you don't miss a program, which it also makes it easy if you save them because of the way that AJ is putting it all together. You can do a search. You can come up with the presentations that talk about the item that you are looking for as far as topics go, and you can share it with others very easily as well. And folks, my name is Becca Dukes. It is an honor. Oh, other things on the website, sorry. We also have a store. The store is for those who, one, know their preferred customer number, or two, were not referred by somebody specific to watch this program. If you were, get back with the person that shared our program with you. They are a fabulous hearted person because they took the time to share it with you. So take the time to get back with them, as we are a resource for an amazing community, and we want to make sure that we support that community and maintain the integrity of that community. But if nobody referred you to this program, feel free to use our website in its entirety to help you. If you found out about us because of an email and you're not working with somebody as well and you'd like to get more information or have a free 15-minute consultation, simply reply to that email and say consultation, please. And we will get you connected with a certified holistic health coach. So folks, have a fabulous 2024. Be safe, be blessed, and we'll see you next year. Bye for now. Oh, one more thing. Today is the last day. If you would like to be part of the Certified Holistic Health Coach course at 50% off, I mean, that brings the course down to $347.50, folks, to become a Certified Holistic Health Coach. Make sure you give us a call to get that savings code, 855-949-3377, or get back with the person that has shared information about the coaching course with you. Again, today's the last day to take advantage of that 50% off. So 855-949-3377, or if you're missing the day, still $749 is pretty reasonable, folks, for all the knowledge that you gain. You can go to coach.dailywithdoc.com and find out more information about our Certified Holistic Health Coach course that is offered by the Institute of Holistic Health. As the Director of Student Services for the Institute of Holistic Health, it is my honor and privilege to bring this resource to you and the world. Bye for now. Welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca.
This program is for educational purposes only. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual sharing their testimony. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach. Welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. This program is for educational purposes only. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual sharing their testimony. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach.